Welcome in, whiskey freaks, to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your number one attitudinal bourbon destination. I'm John Stark, and I'll be bringing you candid and sometimes irreverent whiskey news, opinions, and reviews on the industry and the products they've been bringing us for hundreds of years. Today, I'm going to review Little Book The Infinite. Yeah, it's an expensive bottle of whiskey, I know, and I usually review easy-to-find stuff that you can afford without selling a kidney, but this stuff, the hype, it's so big, and I've enjoyed a few of the previous Little Books, so I just got to review this one today, kids. So I picked this one up several weeks ago, actually at the Jim Beam Distillery in Claremont, Kentucky, for an SRP of $200. Now that's about $50 more than the usual Little Book offerings, but like I said, the hype factor, maybe that helps them get away with charging more. I don't know. I paid it. We're going to find out if it's any good, and we're going to find out if it's worth that price. But first, a little bit about Little Book The Infinite Edition 1. And actually, first, a little bit about why it's called Little Book to begin with. And if you want to drink along, get that bottle of Infinite. If you were lucky enough to grab it, crack it open. We're going to go ahead and we're going to taste here in just a minute. See, Freddie Noe, the great-grandson of Jim Beam and the 8th generation Beam master distiller, he was given the nickname Little Book as a kid by his grandfather, Booker Noe. Booker, of course, is the legendary master distiller, and he saw a lot of himself in young Freddie, so the nickname stuck. Now, when Freddie started creating his own whiskey, he decided to call it Little Book, and that wasn't just to honor his granddad, Booker Noe, it was really also to celebrate the legacy that runs so deep in the Beam family. So what makes this one special? Well, Little Book offerings. Okay, it's tricky again, kids, and you know how I feel about infinity bottles. And again, this feels a bit like that. But I'm going to, like I always say, I'm going to trust Freddie on this one. He knows his stuff. I'm going to keep an open mind on this mixture of old and newer whiskeys. And here's what's in it and why it's considered to be so special. The age is a blend of bourbons aged between 7 and 20 years. Now the mash bill, it's a carefully crafted, undisclosed blend of 4 Kentucky straight bourbons, each representing a part of the Noe family legacy. So the first component is Booker Noe's component. It's a 20-year-old bourbon embodying the wisdom of the family's patriarch. No indication here of, before I get too far, 4 components, but no indication of the percentages in here. I would assume that you're not going to get a lot of 20-year-old bourbon in here, but who knows? The second component is Fred Noe's component. It's a 14-year-old bourbon reflecting the mastery of Freddie's father. The third component is Freddie Noe's, Little Book himself. His component is a 7-year-old bourbon showcasing the creativity of the next generation. And the fourth and final piece of the puzzle is a shared family component. It's an 8-year-old bourbon symbolizing the shared traditions that tie their family together. Now, it's called Edition 1 because this is going to be an ongoing annual release that builds on previous years. For the first batch, 70% of the blend of those 4 components was bottled, and the remaining 30% was stored in tanks to stop it from aging any longer. That reserved portion, it's going to serve as the foundation for future annual releases, with each new edition building upon the base blend by adding additional components. So over time, this process will create a continuously evolving, infinite whiskey blend. Okay, I get it. Now the proof, it's a mixed up proof in this bottle because it's 4 different components, but on average it comes in at 119.3, and that's in line with other Little Books that Freddie's put together. So the bottle. Always mention the bottle shape and style. This bottle is the typical Little Book bottle, which is very sexy. It's tall. It's made of clear glass. It tapers to the top like an expensive bottle of wine. They've kind of stolen that wax idea from makers to a degree by sealing it with that black wax. It's got a beautiful gold medallion, and it says Little Book Infinite. It's attached to the outside of the bottle. And in this one, it's got 3 ribbons reaching down from the wax, making this thing look very expensive, which, by the way, it is. Oh, I almost forgot to mention the little dog tag that hangs on the bottle. It lists the whiskey that's in the bottle. This one's a little different. It looks more like a mini greeting card attached, about the size of a dog tag. And inside it, you'll find a little envelope. On that envelope, Freddie discusses the new Infinite Edition. He gives his thoughts on it, the bourbons inside the bottle, and so on. Now, the bottle comes in a gorgeous wooden half box, which is interesting because regular little books come in a full wooden box with a sliding plexiglass front. This one's more like a half box. So that's a slight difference. I guess they wanted to differentiate it maybe at a glance that you could tell this was the Infinite. I don't know. This stuff, according to them, is different and special. Maybe that's one way they want to make it different. So let's crack this baby open. Now, I've already peeled off the wax because the wax is annoying and it makes a mess and that drives me crazy. So I've already done that. I'm going to put this in my Glencairn. Wow. At first look in my Glencairn, you can see the age in this color. I say it's something like a burnt amber. It's beautiful. Now, I always mention the color when it's in the glass, not in the bottle. Different bottles, shapes, sizes, and colors, they're going to affect how you see the liquid. So never consider the color you see inside the bottle. You got to put it in a glass. And this is nice. Now, I've mentioned this a million times. I'm going to say it again. In my opinion, the darker the hue of the whiskey in your glass, the deeper the flavors. Now, it's not always true, but it is sometimes, and I found that over time, it is almost all the time. So it's worth noting, and I will note it every single time. I'm going to nose this thing. Damn. This nose is incredible. And it's got serious legs. You can imagine that the age of this stuff, I'm getting a lot of ethanol on this thing. And even after a few seconds being in my glass, it's not going away. Hell, you might be able to smell it through the speakers. But along with that ethanol, it's got a lot of sweet aromas hitting me too. I'm getting dark fruit. Your typical notes like caramel, cinnamon. I'm getting dusty nuts. Just really awesome smoky sweetness bubbling out of this glass. It's really great. And ethanol's still jumping out of the glass too, though. I think I'm going to go easy when I get my first sip here. I have a feeling this is going to be hot. Hang on just a second. I'm going to get a little sip. Yeah. Well, hot it is. Move it around in the mouth a little bit here for 5 or 6 more seconds. It's really coating the inside of the mouth with oily, it's very viscous liquid. I'm getting all that proof in here, though. But it's not overpowering. Honestly, it's far gentler than I thought it was going to be. I'm getting a smokiness here coming through now, real strong here after a few seconds. I'm getting that sweet caramel, baking spice, the typical notes. The cinnamon is there. It's all coming through here. It's very, very pleasant. Let me get another sip. Okay, so the dusty nuts, yeah, they're here. And I get that with older Knob Creeks I've had. And, well, here it is in the Infant, and that's really no surprise to me. I'll get one more sip here. Kind of evaluate the finish. Finish is long. And that heat, it fades slowly and gently. I got to say, I expected this to burn a long time, but There's something here, and I can't, in this quick tasting, I can't differentiate what it is causing this to fade away so pleasantly. But that ethanol that I was getting on the nose, and you still get that on the nose here, but it is not drinking above that proof point. It is at that proof point at 119. It is not above that. Do you get a warm fuzzy? You do, yes, but it's not unpleasant. So what's the verdict? I'll have the verdict right after the money spot. Are you looking to update your bar or man cave or get someone you love some cool stuff for Christmas? Head over to Etsy at famousdocs.etsy.com and pick up some fantastic prohibition, bourbon, whiskey, and gangster-related photographs and wall art. And if you purchase 4 or more items, you'll get 20% off your entire order for a limited time. That's famousdocs.etsy.com. famousdocs.etsy.com. Well, if you've listened to the Blind Tasting Podcast, you know the verdict has 3 options. Are we going to keep it, collect it, or cull it? To keep it means to proudly display it in your liquor cabinet or bar. This stuff is good for a pour anytime, but there's no need to stock up on it because it's always available. Collect it. You got to grab another bottle or maybe even 2 since you find it so darn delicious, or it just may not be easy to get your hands on. Lastly, cull it. Use it to loosen rusty bolts or sanitize a dirty toilet. In the case of Little Book The Infinite Edition 1, I say, keep it. Is it awesome? No. Is it really, really good? Yes. Yes, it is. And what about the $200 I spent on it? Well, I don't feel ripped off, but regular Little Books are usually $150, and I paid $200 for it. Well, okay. Actually, my wife bought it for me for my birthday, and well, thanks, dear, but if I could do it over again, I would actually pass at that price point. Look, I love the idea here by Freddie to honor the past and look to the future and all that good stuff, but not at this price point. No way, no how. What's good about it? Well, you get lots of the typical notes you'd expect from Beam, and those are good things. I enjoy Beam products. I think I've been clear about that. Now, I reviewed Little Book Chapter 7 a few weeks back, and I'd have gladly paid $200. It was just that darn good. But this bottle, Little Book The Infinite, to me, it's an $80 to $100 bottle, and no more than that. I mean, if a buddy's got it, see if you can share it with him. If you see it at the bourbon bar, get a pour. You definitely should try it. And I do think you'll like it. But it's just not worth $200, even with the cool family history that goes along with it, and the fancy looking box, and the bottle that it comes in. Last but not least, I got to give a shout out to the farmers, the distillery production guys and gals, the warehouse workers, the bottlers, and the truck drivers. They're the ones that make it happen. So cheers to all of them. Well, that's all I've got for today, Whiskey Freaks. Thanks for listening to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your #1 attitudinal bourbon destination.